Hello, welcome back to GOT. About 3 months ago, I did a video comparing the Vivo X Fold 5 to the Automagic V5. And back then they were both brand new and they sparked a lot of interest in the comments below. And I'm coming back to you about 3 months to do another update because both of them have been updated with software. And of course, I have updated use experience on both of these phones. And what I'm going to do is go over both of them again and tell you what's changed and if my verdict has changed. So you want to stick around to the very end where I give my final thoughts on which one earns a spot in my pocket. Let's go. So in this video, we're going to talk about a bunch of different areas on both of them, and I'm going to tell you what my thoughts are and what my experience is. Let's start off with daily reliability. So looking at the two of these, you can see that nothing's really changed on either one of them. The look and feel is still the same, and the Vivo is still the Chinese ROM version, where the Automagic is a global version. So that makes a big difference and a deciding factor on a lot of these categories. So keep that in mind as we go along. So the global version of the Vivo may make a huge difference. So I'm counting on you guys to comment below and let me know. So as far as daily reliability goes, the Automagic actually takes the cake simply because it does cooperate with the Google Play Store on most of the apps, at least more than the Vivo does, because the Vivo is the Chinese ROM. And as far as using it with my different watches, whether it be the Pixel or the Samsung, the Automagic plays very nicely, and I can't seem to get them to link up with the Chinese ROM. Now, that's where you come in. Is the global version of the Vivo much better in that area? So with that in mind, when you talk about ecosystem, the Automagic does fit in the ecosystem just a little bit better. And a matter of fact, it even is compatible with my Apple products, such as my Mac and even the iPhone. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Whereas the Vivo, when it was released, had those claims it was going to be compatible with the Mac and the iPhone. But the problem is, because it's the Chinese ROM, everything has to be in Chinese for it to be compatible. So if we understand, the global version doesn't even have compatibility with the Apple products, such as the Macs or the iPhone, whereas the Automagic V5 does. So the winner on ecosystem and compatibility and daily use, the Automagic actually wins in this one. Now let's talk about performance on the two of these and thermals. Well, I've done plenty of tests since my last video on the two of these, and my performance test, as you may know if you've seen my videos, is always real world scenarios where I will edit videos and process them on these phones. And when it comes to head to head, the Elite chip in the Automagic V5 does win over the Snapdragon Gen 3 in the Vivo. So it does have an upper hand because of the chip itself. But that's not to say that the Vivo doesn't do well. It does good on its own. And I don't think either one of them really got all that hot when processing things. But in the long run, the Vivo does tend to throttle just a little bit more than the Automagic. So in performance and thermals, the Automagic actually wins that category as well, simply because that Elite chip is much more efficient. Now let's talk battery life and charging. On both of these, you can see here, they both are very close to each other on the battery. You've got an upper hand on the Vivo with a 6,000 milliamp hour battery, and the Automagic is a 5820 milliamp hour battery. So they're very close. So I actually did a battery test on both of these phones as well as others just a couple of weeks ago. And I got to tell you, the Automagic surprisingly beat everything. And it actually beat out the Vivo by about 11 minutes longer on screen on time and use. Now, when it came to charging, you would think the Vivo would take it, having that 80-watt charger versus a 66-watt charger for the Honor, but it didn't happen. And you can say maybe it's because of a larger battery to charge on the Vivo, but it lost by about 18 minutes. The Automagic, again, was the fastest out of all my devices in charging. So on battery life and charging, once again, the Automagic takes the lead. Now, when it comes to cameras, in my last video comparing these two, I had a few things wrong. Like, one was I didn't think that the Automagic did very well in portrait shots, but that's because I didn't realize you had to set the portrait depth. In other words, how much bokeh did you want in the back? I didn't realize that because I never set it. So once I figured that out, the Automagic did really well. And compared it to the Vivo, I think they're right there and compatible with one another. Now, as far as daylight shots, there's nothing really changed. The Automagic is still a little more colorful and brighter during the day than the Vivo, but the Vivo has that clarity when it comes to distant shots. And then at night, I made an error on the last video. I didn't realize that the Vivo had a night sight setting. It's actually called night and landscape. That's why I missed it, where on the Honor Magic, you just turn it to night view. And so now retesting it with the night sight, it's right there. They're very compatible, but I'm telling you, it's going to come down to personal preference on the two of these as far as the camera features. I don't think one is really topping the other. I mean, you have a 64 megapixel zoom on the Honor Magic V5 versus a 50 megapixel on the Vivo. But because of the Zeiss lens, it's right there with it. So either one, I'd give it a tie on these, but maybe a slight edge to the Vivo on clarity. So if I'm going to give it a slight edge, I'm going to give it a win on the cameras. Now let's talk a little bit about software features and maybe some AI integrity. Well, you know, the Vivo, since it's a Chinese version, it still throws a bunch of Chinese stuff at me at times on pop-ups and whatnot, and I just haven't quite figured them all out yet. So that's bothersome. And then of course it doesn't have the news feed that you have on the Honor Magic or any of the other Android devices, where you swipe to the left and you have the news feed. On the Vivo, it's all in Chinese. So I have to eliminate that and just go with the app, Google app, so I have the same news feed on it. And then as far as this being a Chinese ROM, it's not fully compatible with all the Google Play Store apps. Most of them, yes, but not all of them. And again, as we mentioned earlier, it's not compatible with things like your watches, and unless you get probably the Vivo watch, if they have a watch. Now, some say that they're able to make them compatible with the global version, so that may just be my Chinese ROM. So I need to hear from some of you out there. Were you able to get your watch working on your global version? Because I can tell you, since my last video, the global release has come into play, and a lot more of you have the global version. So please share your knowledge with us down in the comments. Then when it comes to software, you have a lot more feature-rich capabilities on the Honor Magic V5 I've found over time than you do on the Vivo. One of the things is larger apps. You can actually customize your apps a little better, and on the Vivo, not so much. You can actually enlarge or make the apps on the home screen larger or smaller. Right now, I have them in the largest setting. There's only two. There's 5:9 or 4:7. 5:9 makes them even smaller, harder for me to see. So I like it in 4:7. But even still, the apps, as you can see, are quite a bit smaller than what you have on the Honor Magic V5. So I do prefer this. And then of course there's the customizing, as I mentioned in the first video, of the splash screen. As you can see here, when you turn a splash screen on here, I have this with my wife. On this one, it's this with my wife. But when you go into the actual phone itself, in other words, boot it up here, you can have a different screen background on the outside screen, but not on the Vivo. It's the same. And then if you open it up, now again, maybe things are different on the global. You can have a different inside screen on the Vivo, just as you can on the Honor if you choose to. I just didn't choose to in this scenario. And then when it comes to AI, AI is more integrated on the Honor Magic V5 than the Vivo, and that simply could be because it's a Chinese ROM. But if I want to do any text editing or email editing, you know, if I want any assistance from AI, it's all in Chinese, and I can't do that. Now I can use different AI apps. You know, you've got the Gemini here, as well as the Chat GPT. You can do that on that one as well as this one here. So that capability is there, but you got to do it through an app. It's not embedded in the system. So as far as more universal AI features, you got those here in the Honor Magic V5. So they're on software and AI integration. The Honor takes the win on this one. Now let's talk about durability and quality of the build. Well, they both look great and they both feel solid, but right now I don't know if this is translating over the screen, but over the video, but the depth of the crease on the Vivo has increased and is a lot more visible than it is on the Honor Magic for me right now. You know, with all this movement, I don't know if you're seeing it on either camera, but it's a lot more visible for me anyway on the Vivo. And another thing about that is this: the Honor Magic, if you can see here, I'm going to bring in my microphone right here so it's in view and do this stuff right over the microphone. If I fold it and unfold it, nice and smooth, nice and solid. Now let's do that with the Vivo. I don't know if you can hear it. It has some crackling in it. You can hear it right there. It has some crackling right in the hinge, so I don't know what's going on there. I have not taken either one of them to the beach or out in the dirt and dust, so I'm not quite sure why that's developed on the Vivo. So as far as the hinge durability, I think the Honor Magic takes this because it's not making any crackling noise like I get with this one. I actually get the same crackling noise on the Pixel 9 Pro Fold as well. It's making noise when I open it up. So it's just, I don't know if you can hear it, but that's, it's neither here nor there. It doesn't affect anything. It's just interesting that I've only had it 3 months and it's already making some crackling sounds. And the fact that the crease has become more visible on the Vivo. So I think that the Honor Magic is taking the cake again on the quality and the build. And then of course, as we know, it's won that award from Guinness Book of World Records, being able to hold the most weight when open. This thing is just incredible, the build on this Honor Magic V5. So again, I know it seems like I'm being partial, but yet another win to the Honor Magic. Now we talk about ergonomics and practical use. As far as the ergonomics go, you all know that I prefer the wider screens, and you can see that here on the Honor Magic. It is wider than the Vivo. And let's go ahead and put them both down here on the table, and you can see it's a bit wider. I believe you can see that on the screen up above, and you can see that the Honor Magic is just a little bit wider, and the Vivo is a little bit taller. I don't know if that translates up above on the screen, but there you go. The Vivo is just a slight bit taller and a little more narrow, and because of that, the keypad for me is not quite as good as what you get on the Honor Magic V5. The keys are a little larger, so ergonomics seem to me a little bit better for me. And I do like the wider feel. This just feels a little too narrow in my hand. I like the wider feel. I can grip it a little better, and then I'm not having to shimmy as much as I do with the Vivo to get up to the top on the Honor Magic. It has more reachability, and that's no difference than the Z Fold 7. The Z Fold 7, I just don't quite go for the narrow, taller devices, and that's one of the reasons why I never ordered the Oppo Find N5, because it's even taller than the rest of these. Now, as far as practical use, they are both really good in use case. You can use the outer screen on a daily basis as much as you want to. That's not an issue. You can do just about everything you want to on a bar phone on these front screens. And then on the inner screen, it's about the same thing too. You get a larger screen, but it's taller on the Vivo and wider on the Honor Magic. Now, this is more of a passport style, which you probably heard of, and I do prefer that. And then as far as multitasking, at first I was really falling in love with this multitasking on the Vivo, where you've got these 4 apps open. So you got actually 5 apps open at the same time, and you can use any of them. The problem is they are actually not full accessible apps when they are open here. There are some features that you can't get to because they're hidden, even though seems to be a full app side, versus the Honor Magic, where you can go ahead and you can choose to open up 3 apps here. I'll go ahead and just choose 3, 1, 2, and let's do calendar 3, and they got all 3 open up, and they are fully functional apps. Everything is there on them. There's nothing that you can't do on them. Like, for instance, here, my Bible app, it gets a little difficulty to maneuver around and go to different settings because it's not the full app. Whereas on here, you have the full app, and then, of course, you can enlarge them any way you want to. So you have a lot more compatibility, I think, with multitasking, and more flexibility and reliability on the Honor Magic V5 when it comes to multitasking. But I will say, when multitasking with these things side by side, 2 apps, there's no difference. They're just as good as one another. The Vivo and the Honor will beat out any bar phone when it comes to multitasking. Now let's talk about value and support on both of these. You get great value on either phone. I mean, they're foldables. They cost a little more, but you get a lot more for it with open screen on the inside, not multitasking on either one of them. So I think they both are very valuable in what they do. And they both even have their own separate items that are even more valuable than the other, like the Zeiss camera. I really like the clarity. This is more superior. But on the Vivo, I really like the fact of the build. It seems to be a lot more solid than what you're getting on the Vivo right now. And of course, all the capabilities and the compatibility with the Google Play Store that you get with the Honor Magic, I think it kind of trumps everything else out there. Now, when it comes to support, well, that's another story. Fortunately, I haven't needed support on either one of them, but I think it's going to be pretty much neck and neck the same, because both companies being overseas for me in China, there's no local support here. It's going to be just as difficult getting any service on either one of these. So I would have to put that on an even playing field with both of them. Now, looking at all the comments from the last video and other videos since, it seems like a lot of you viewers agree, and the consensus is about the same, that the Honor Magic V5 feels the most balanced and consistent overall than the Vivo, but the Vivo X Fold 5 has the better cameras. And for camera enthusiasts, this Zeiss lens, this is the way to go. But then again, a lot of you agree that all the missing features you get if you have the Chinese version don't really justify having the camera, and that the Honor Magic V5 is more balanced in everything else, as well as having a more than capable camera hardware that beats out just about anything else out there. Now, both cameras are phenomenal, and as far as my daily driver and what earns a spot in my pocket, I'm pretty sure you can guess it already, especially if you've seen any of my other videos, is the Honor Magic V5, because it is more well-rounded. Now, if I had the global version on the Vivo X Fold 5, I might think a little bit differently. However, from the different things I've heard out there, it's still missing some capabilities that you get with the Honor Magic V5. So it may not be so. Now it's time to hear from you. Have you got the global version? I want to hear all about it. Does it have the news feed if you swipe to the left like you do with all the other Android phones? Does it allow you to connect with your smartwatches of any brand? Does it have embedded Gemini features where you can do all the same things you can on these other phones, and especially in the photo editing area? But again, as I said, my main concern actually is assistance when it comes to text writing or email writing. Does it have that integrated in English if you get the global version? So for me, if I have a planned photo shoot, I know ahead of time, I will grab the Vivo X Fold 5 and take it along, because I know it's going to give me better, more consistent photos, I think, in the long run. But as far as well-rounded, if I were to leave the Honor Magic at home and just take this, I would regret not having the Honor Magic V5. But in the other case, not so much, because this is very capable. Now, if you want to see my previous comparison between the two and see a lot more detail in the camera photos, check out this video here. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and God bless.